So thank you for being here. In summary, our inquiry reveals that there were, in fact, shockingly brazen attempts by Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, Deputy Chief Election Officer Roxanne Myers, and Returning Officer Claremont Mengo to derail and corrupt the statutorily prescribed procedure for the counting, ascertaining, and tabulation of votes of the March 2nd election, as well as the true declaration of the results of that election, and that they did so, to put it in unvarnished language of the ordinary man, for the purpose of stealing the election. Now, by now, most people in Guyana would be familiar with this paragraph of the Commission of Inquiry into the general elections of 2020, the report of which was handed over to the President yesterday. I repeat, to put it in unvarnished language of the ordinary man, for the purpose of stealing the election. That is on page 10. When combined, the justification is in the summary. It says, senior GCOM officials abandon all need for neutrality and impartiality and demonstrated a bias for a competing political party, and in the course of events over those days, showed an open connection with that party, and by their efforts, sought a desired result for that party. And we know which party that is. That's APNO AFC. So the Commission of Inquiry, an international commission of inquiry, has confirmed to Guyana and to the world, after numerous hearings in which several of the main players chose to not appear because their appearance or giving evidence could have incriminated them. They chose silence. This inquiry, the international inquiry now, has demonstrated to everyone what we all knew, and now it's in black and white. And this is a record of the true nature of the People's National Congress. We have had several documented cases of the rigging that took place in almost all of the period that they were in office, up to 1992. These have been documented internationally by several commissions and by several agencies, if you look at US State Department reports, etc. And now we have documentary evidence through an international inquiry that they did this once again. And this is why when we say that rigging and cheating at elections is part of the PNC's DNA, this is what we mean. Now, corollary to all of this, if you trace back their public pronouncements in the entire period since the return of democracy to Guyana, you would see that there is a common set of protestations that they've always, or a pattern of protestations that they've always pursued. Before the elections, they always complain about the list. They've complained about the list from 1992, And even now, they're complaining about the list. That has not changed. In 2015, when they were contesting and they won, they were complaining about the list too at that time. But after they won, the list wasn't bad any longer. So that's common, and they always accuse the other side of trying to steal the elections. Well, do not have a single documented case where the PPP in its entire history has stolen an election. Not a single instance of that. But we have had that in all of the life of the PNC. Mr. Norton had an opportunity when the Commission of Inquiry was going on to prove what he said to the people of this country, that their case is a solid one, that the People's Progressive Party that they're currently pursuing in the courts, that the PPP was the one that stole the elections, and they had evidence to that effect. Could have easily presented that to the Commission of Inquiry. He could have presented the statements of poll that he said he had, that's kept somewhere locked up in Congress Place or somewhere else, but that they refused to release statements of poll that showed they won the elections. So we know now that it's all bluster. And they continue with the farce about winning the 2020 elections. People like Amanza Walton and Mahi Paul, today they were at a press conference. They were part of that plot. They actively defended the rigging. They were part of the recount too, publicly trying to thwart the will of the people. Now that we know through the inquiry there was a deliberate attempt to do so. We knew it beforehand, anecdotally. Now it's all gone through a public hearing and the results are clear. So this is the pattern of behavior that we will see. Once again, I think when exposed here, they've fallen back on what is familiar to them, which is, oh, the list is bad and the PPP is committing fraud. This is non-new, what you're hearing now. So I think Mr. Norton has a major problem, but I will deal with that in a moment. We now need, I hope that the country will read the Commission of Inquiry report. It speaks to almost like a thriller story about how the numerous players were all working, some openly in the background, some elements in the police force, some in GCOM, some at Congress Place, some in various areas and the PRN, all of them working in tandem to perpetrate the fraud on this country. But right now, the COI has identified the people who are charged as people as actively involved in that farce that took place when they tried to change the will of the people of this country. Today should have been a day when the PNC and those who were at the press conference should have hung their heads in shame. Now even want to appear at a press conference a day after this report that documented their attempt to steal the elections. But they're extremely brazen and shameless, and will accuse people of fraud when they are the biggest perpetrators of fraud that we've ever known, electoral fraud that we have ever known in this country. And so I would urge the country to read the report, we have also about some behavior of key figures. The chief scrutineer of APNU, Carol Joseph. You would see that the report speaks to her behavior here. And the reason I'm mentioning her, singling her out, because she is in the report and she was basically described in a particular manner. It's documented that she has a particular style, a bullying style. As I said before, the reason I mention it is you will understand now what is happening in the PNC. She has now taken over the role of chief scrutineer, and she has brought that attitude and the bullyism and the abrasiveness right into the bosom of the PNC. And secondly, if you notice, most of these allegations of fraud that are made by the PNC come from Region 5, in which she and Darren Wade and Vince Roy Jordan and the others, they act in a particular manner. They're residents of that region. So you can imagine if she was prepared to intimidate the donors and the international community. The report speaks about her intimidating people in these areas. I will find the sections a little bit later. But you will, this is what she said. However, Miss Carol Joseph, a representative of the APNU AFC party, became extremely loud and abusive, swearing at and threatening people in the room. She told the diplomats present that they were meddling in Guyana's elections and they should leave the country. She told, Joseph Carl spoke directly to Mr. Mingo, telling him to ignore the party agents and observers. This is all part of the Commission of Inquiry report. Just imagine if she could say that to the international community, the tone of terrorizing the people in Region 5, you can easily believe that. These are diplomats she is doing this to. And that is what we find playing out a lot in Region 5 in their accusation of fraud. They have gone to the homes of many of the people, bullied them basically, bullied them into signing forms saying in one area they got a template printed out, no doubt, at Congress Place. Single template, and carried it to people to say that they didn't sign the list. We put the candidate, she made a public statement and she did interviews. The candidate is credible. She said, I went to every home. I got everybody to sign. There was no fraud here, but people were intimidated to withdraw. On a single template, 13 of them, because they were fearful for their lives. Some of those people called me and they said, you know, we live in a hostile community that harass us and our children. And so we chose to do this, but we're still very supportive. And it would easily, if that's reported to the police as fraud, when you match the signatures, you would easily see that the signatures match actual signatures of people in those areas, in one particular area in Berbice. So that's terrorizing. In another case, Mr. Jacobs, where they're making a big thing about dead people being on the list, the person, and me calling to apologize, the person who, the husband of the deceased, and my condolences went out to that family, is part of our team and he's campaigning with us. I spoke with Mr. Jacobs. Today, he's in the field, he's campaigning. The problem is that his wife died a few weeks ago, and the people who were sending forward the list were not vigilant enough to take off her name as a backer, because they did a lot of the signing of the forms were done since last year when we thought local government elections were held before. It's not that they resurrected some dead person and got them to sign. The person died just recently. But her husband is still part of our team and campaigning there. There was no attempt at fraud. We looked around and I said to people before on the press conference, there were over 27,000 names and signatures we submitted to GCOM. Over 25,000 backers and 2,000 candidates, because we're contesting everywhere. So we knew there would be some discrepancies. I saw when asked at the press conference, I think it was one of the PNC officials today said, oh dear, in a large process like this, you're bound to have a few problems. So when we examine, I personally, after these instances came up, I've been talking to people. And 99% of the allegations are just that, allegations. No basis in fact. APNU has put its propagandists, the Rickford Burke and the Bench Cup and Norton and the others. They have sought to create a campaign like they have always done historically, that there is fraud. And so they are magnifying and lying about the people that I mentioned when they were actively intimidating them to come off the list. That's one. Two, they've photoshopped a lot of things and circulate them that are not factual. That's what we found. Several photoshopped signatures and everything. They've done that, and they're known to do this. And what we have gone after were when people on their own approached us, and there were some people who did that. There are about 6 cases where I asked, where we were not sure. I asked about them, and I didn't get satisfactory answers from the ground, from the candidates and the others, because they were often have to go out and seek the backers or sign up the forms. So we are not there on the ground. And there are about 6 cases where I've asked people, so we examine that seem to have merits. In 3 of those cases already we made it clear, we told them replace, because to say that 3 candidates want to come off or 4 candidates in an area, we can easily find 25 other persons who are willing to sign our form. We did this in opposition when we didn't have state power. We contested in all the areas to sign our forms, and APNU didn't find any fraud in 2018. Now we are in office. More people want to sign. We have more people. So if we took off 3 names, we got another 17 names that are prepared to sign. I said, get extra names that are prepared to sign, because this is not necessary. So that is what we've been working. We've been calling people, talking to them if they say there's something wrong with the list, but there's a whole deal of intimidation. No evidence. And now, why is the PNC doing this? They're doing this for several reasons. One, as we see, it's a historical pattern. 2 is that they want to be, Norton and the others were not prepared for local government elections. So you saw the AFC said they're looking for a reason to pull out. AFC said the local government election should be canceled. Norton said he will stop local government elections. The guy doesn't know. He has no authority whatsoever. He can't stop the General Secretary from going into Congress place, much less how stopping local government elections as a country. He said yesterday he will stop local government elections. But he didn't want to. You recall, up till 2 weeks ago, before nomination day, a week before nomination day, when asked whether he will contest, he said he wasn't sure, so he was not ready. So that's one of the reasons. They're not prepared. They're worried about the defeat. And then he's worried the defeat for him has another sort of significance. Not just the national significance, but a political party significance, because there is a wing of the PNC waiting for the defeat of the local government elections to make a move on his leadership. And many of them were sitting with him at the press conference today. Why do you think that he does not have a lot of the members of parliament out with him on this campaign? Because many of them are hoping to make a move on him to throw him out. And they would use the defeat at the local government elections as the reason for that, to throw him out. So he is fighting for survival, not just at the national level, within the party itself. And that is why he has to claim there was fraud. So he will say to the supporters, when they lose at the national level, oh, there was fraud. And secondly, to the people internally, when they make the move, but PPP stole the election, so you can't blame me for that. This is the thinking of Norton. It's so transparent that I'm just at home laughing, thinking the whole country must be seeing this. I can't be the one seeing it alone. Everybody must be wise as to his game now. And that is why the big set of protests around the country and stuff. Of course, not big protests, minimal protests. Nobody pays attention to him anymore. So this is crucial. You got to understand what is happening in the PNC and why all of this here. Now, so the last time we spoke, he said, when the media asked him, Norton, he said that they were contesting practically all the constituencies across the country and the LAAs. So I gave you some numbers at my last press conference about where they're not contesting. And then he went to the newspapers, and I thought I saw somewhere that, oh, it's on the 22nd of April, Starbuck News, Norton debunks Jagdeo claims APNU only contesting 45% of local government constituencies. And up to yesterday, they were defending it again. In fact, at today's press conference, I'm trying to find out which one of them. My staff gave me a couple of notes. And at today's press conference, I think it's this Sherwin Holder, who is saying we're contesting in practically all LLAs. This is today's press conference. Now, this should be an important thing for this country. It's either I am lying or Norton is lying and his whole team. It can't be that there is a gray area here. There can't be a gray area. It's either one party is lying or the other party is lying. And so this country should try to find out who is lying at the national level and would lie to the people of the country consistently without any shame. So the media has a duty now to investigate this. This is a major task. If a person can lie to you openly so often, then you can't trust them with anything else. You can't trust them with absolutely nothing, because they would lie to you on a whole range of matters. So today I brought for you, and I'm going to share it to you, the 25 areas that APNU is not contesting in as APNU. So APNU is not contesting. 25 LAs of the, because the numbers kept changing. Last time it was 24, but now that nomination day has come and completed the objections. So the numbers may change by maybe 0 point something percent from the last time. But these are the 25 areas, and you will have a chance to see what those areas are. I'll give you this and call him and ask him. Now, in these 25 areas alone, there are 206 constituencies. So if you're not contesting in the 25 areas, you can't be contesting in any of the constituencies in the area. So that's 206 of the 610 already gone. So today we heard from Jordan saying they're contesting in all of the LAAs. I'm giving you 25 of the 80 LAAs that they're not contesting in. You wouldn't find APNU on the ballot. And in those areas, that's 206 constituencies. I will then give you, for the whole country, all the details here. And these are internal documents, right? The party documents that we did from our own analysis based on what we have. So they're not GCOM documents. So I want you to know that, but you can then ask Norton about this, that you have our documents now. You can say, did the PPP fabricate this? Or you have it. And so I'm going to give you this, and it says of the 610 constituencies, the APNU is contesting in 264 as APNU. So that means that they're not contesting in 346 of the 610 constituencies. That gives you, make up the 610. So that is 56% no contest, and it's 56.72 and 43.28. That's why I'm saying it changed the last time I said 45%. So that's what they're not contesting in. They're not contesting in 56.72% of the constituency, or 346 of the 610, and 25 of the LAAs. So how could you, up to today, lie to the people of this country? Who will believe such a party in anything if you can't do that? If they don't even have, I don't know if he has not done the analysis, if he is deluded, or I can't explain it. I'm trying to explain how a rational person, a leader of the opposition, will go to a press conference speaking to the people of this country and tell such a blatant lie without fear of it being exposed. How are you going to PR this away? So at the end of the press conference, I'll give you these documents, and then you can send them over to APNU. So he didn't rebut anything I said. So when Sabaknu's report says debunks, didn't debunk anything, not a thing. In fact, he's doubled down on the lies. And we have allowed this as a country and as reporters. I need to chide the reporters a bit. For him to get away with such a big lie about the elections. But their entire campaign is built around lies and intimidation. Intimidation of people in the communities. So let me tell you a bit more about why they're so panicked. They rolled out a Mr. Adam Harris who was the editor of Kaituran News until he got fired because of trying to change stories from what I gather around the same period when APNU tried to rig the elections. But he had done that. He had most of the negatives of the government against the government, the 400 stories against Marriott came about when he was there. So in Linden, what shocked them was nomination day. They still are reeling from the shock. They still can't recover. It's really taken a big toll on their psyche and everything else, because they're seeing a multi-ethnic coalition of a true nature in the PPP emerging. A party that is made up of people of every race in significant numbers. That is their nightmare. So right across the country, they've resorted to intimidation tactics to scare people off. But that wasn't enough. So they had to work up a campaign. So in Linden, they had a press conference with a Sharma Solomon and the regional chairman. Now, you got to know about the Sharma Solomon. Sharma Solomon and Vanessa Kissoon, they were the ones leading the charge in 2015. They mobilized young people in Linden, lied to them that they're going to get a lot of jobs and things are going to change in Linden when the coalition took office. They disappeared in the 5 years. They disappeared in the 5 years and left people, all the young people and everyone, leave them high and dry. Nothing. In fact, they lost jobs. There was very little money circulating in the area. That's their track record of misleading the people of Region 10, particularly the Linden. They've done it before. They did it in 2015. People there know of their track record, lied to them. So they've re-emerged again. And then the chairman who came in 2015, he knows what I'm talking about with a lot of the scandals there. People, APNU bigwigs who got the contracts in his tenure in the 5 years that until now owe the RDC because they never completed the civil works. He knows about the photocopying scandal with the Linden Electricity Corporation. He knows what I'm talking about because he'd be listening. I don't need to mention it. I hope the media would follow up on these scandals. He knows that. So it was a cushy job for him and the others. So the two of them appear at a press conference now, once again to talk to the people of Linden. They believe people have forgotten their track record of 5 years, nothing. Nothing on housing. I mentioned before, the same Lowenfield who got 200 acres in Linden, no doubt it was a payback or an upfront payment for what was to come, which was what you saw in the COI. 200 acres equivalent to 1,000 house lots. He got a loan. So we know the situation. But as I said before, they rolled out Adam Harris, who goes and, you know, he baby feeds Norton these softball questions that they agree beforehand. So guess what question he asked? Adam Harris, I want to talk about red jerseys. Have you seen a pile of red jerseys in the streets? That's his question at the press conference in Linden. You know, a reporter going, there was a photograph in Georgetown where these red jerseys were dumped in canals. Has there been a similar site in Linden? Now, if you had anything dumped in any canal, I'm sure it came out of Congress Place. They can Photoshop these things easily. But have you seen any similar sites in Linden? That's their big obsession, these red jerseys. Obsession. Imagine a serious reporter going there. And Solomon, jerseys were tossed to the ground. At every event, we saw red T-shirts on the ground. I don't know what every event. At nomination day, you saw them being worn by an army of people marching down to deliver a list of people who were enthusiastic about being part of the procession. So it's an obsession. They're obsessing about these red T-shirts now. We no doubt it came out of Congress Place. And then they dump in a few lies about, oh, the PPP Stop Lend program. The Linden Enterprise Network was established by me as president. They threw leaf. When I was Minister of Finance, we did an area study. We got 12 million euros from SISMIN. We established an incubator for small business. We did a road to West Watuka. We established a small loan scheme. The PNC people who took over the management of the scheme, the loan scheme, they ran it down. They ran it down. That was our track record. We built the hospital there, several secondary schools, almost all the roads, a whole range of stuff. I don't want to get new water, the new water plant, everything. So he is now throwing this in. Oh, Lens program, the government is not helping out. They don't want to help the people of Linden. Since this government has taken office, more people in Linden are employed, working now. In fact, that they tried to sabotage, at least 1,200 of them through the part-time program and several others through many other initiatives. The number of roads done in Linden has maybe not just tripled, maybe quadrupled over their period in office, and in just a short time. A whole range of other plans for job creation. We now are working on building the housing. We had a little setback. We did the 400 we're working on in Amelia's ward, but then the site that they selected, we found that they had a huge bauxite reserve there. And so we didn't want to put the houses there. We're shifting it slightly. But 1,000 houses, how many did they build? Not one. How many house lots did they give out? Maybe to a few people, only, no bigwigs. So things are happening in the region. He will not want people to hear that. But they go around the communities spreading racism. Solomon and there's Adams and the other, sidetracking. But it's a mindset. It's a mindset. All week long they've been at it, and then they roll in the criminal bark for good measure and bench cop, and they've been pushing all of these things. The guy who was extorting people abroad. So I've seen a whole week of them hyping, oh, PPP fraud and all of that. It's pure nonsense. Not 2023. People know what you're about. The PNC is the party that rigs elections. The problems we've had in Region 5 mainly, it's because of a series of intimidation where there are real problems. Where there are real problems, we sought to find out, because in any list you can have that. We're trying to fix those, and we've fixed them. People still have recourse to go to the police for fraud, because it's the police that investigate fraud. The police that investigate fraud. And when I said I had to put out a statement to say to many of our supporters, particularly of African ancestry, who are being harassed, I say, call me, and I've spoken to many of them directly. I've spoken to them directly to reassure them. They've given me the names of the APNU activists who have been bullying them, sent by, no doubt, Norton and the others to bully these people. And so I have all of that. And I said, once the reports are made, they will be investigated by the police and action taken. It's not directing the police to do anything. It's making sure that cases of intimidation are investigated. They're not swept under the carpet. People still have recourse, anybody, APNU people or PPP people, to go to the police for fraud. People, and we take a strong view against fraud. But the bulk, 99% of what has happened that you have seen in the public domain is because of them going at night, in the evening. They go when it's dark to the people's homes and threaten them. People who have signed on to these forms. And then people have said, you got to go and say that you didn't sign. So this is something that we need to tackle. I think, as I said before, Norton is panicked. He has a lot of things to worry about. Least of all is the People's Progressive Party. He has major problems internally to deal with. He has now deployed somebody who is described as a thug in the Commission of Inquiry report, has become his chief scrutineer for the whole country. So imagine what you can expect there. They have no inspiration for young people. They have nothing to promise people. I've been meeting with our candidates, and I want to thank them for the resilience that they have shown, the candidates and the backers, in the face of serious aggression. But people know that they're done. People know that they're done. These are not olden times when people could intimidate. And they say, oh, people who come to us we bribe. Imagine if we could bribe everybody to wear the t-shirt. We could have bribed them to sign the forms too, but that's not the way we work. People are coming to the PPP because they see a future with us, for themselves too. And I have no shame for saying that as Guyanese that they will make progress. I have absolutely no shame as General Secretary of the party. I will advocate for them as supporters of this party. That's my job as General Secretary of a party. But not to discriminate against other people. So that's why people are coming to us, and they're worried mainly about the large number of Afro-Guyanese. You talk about people throwing away our t-shirts. I've run out of t-shirts here because people have been calling all the time. They want t-shirts. We've had to now get another set printed. We ran out of t-shirts. And I've seen people wearing them everywhere else, including some senior APNU people, that he may be shocked to learn of a little bit later at the national elections. We're waiting for the national elections. So don't pay too much attention to Norton. I was surprised that at the press conference, I'm trying to look through the press conference and the notes, and I can't find anything of seriously to address. So I'm gonna just wait. Don't waste my time there. Undo that. That's their press conference they just had. So let me just deal with a few issues. You know, there was a pretty strong editorial in the Starbuck News about the National Intelligence and Security Agency, saying that it's not even Burnham would have done this, it's very bad, and that it's part of spying on opponents, critics, and is this that the PPP wants to spy on people to perpetuate itself in office? It was a bad editorial, really bad one. Basically accusing the PPP of its totalitarianism and all kinds of things. So I think having now found out the truth about the National Intelligence Agency, we have seen a Another story today in the Starbuck News, and to their credit, because they did a lot of research and the story is a very accurate one in today's paper, and it overturns practically the editorial. Totally overturns the editorial. So to the credit of the newspaper, when they found out. And what did they really find out? That this National Intelligence Agency has been around for over 10 years. It's been around. It was called something else. That under APNU, it was several ministers chaired this, Harman and others. They were part of the board. That President Granger had Bruce Lovell head the agency. That there was a promise to give this a legislative existence, even then under APNU. And we are now moving forward to do that. That it's not unusual for countries to have this. Many countries in the world have similar agencies. But to cut to the chase, it is that the agency has been in existence for over several years. It's a good thing, basically, to give it a legislative form. It's a good thing to have the subvention from Parliament voted directly to the agency and not through another agency's budget. It will bring greater accountability to the body, and that it's not a political thing. It was there under PPP, then APNU, and now here again. So clearly, the story captured all of this, going through the whole details, who chaired it, etc. And I would urge you to read the story. I don't want to repeat it. So we'd urge people, the media, not to rush to judgment like that editorial did, without finding out the facts. Too often we in the PPP suffer because of this. This was the same agency that President Granger used to spy on Harman, Trotman, and all of the others by tapping their phones. It was the same agency, and we don't, now, because it operated in the dark, now we're bringing it to the light. Should be commended for this, and with proper oversight. So you can't do this to citizens just like that. We should be commended. But you know what? It's not the Starbuck, it's not the media, because media should bring out these things, and that's fine. And as I said before, this story today is a really good, well-researched story, and it negates entirely the editorial. But you know what's shocking to me? That this Norton said he objected to the NSA, and he said it's retrogressive and dictatorial, and it will be a harassment of the citizens and a violation of human rights. You know why? Norton didn't know that this body existed. So I can forgive the reporter or the newspaper for not knowing this. But if you're playing in big league, you would have known this. That's why when I say that Norton was a junior functionary operating on the periphery of policy making, or anything else for that matter, a junior functionary in his whole life. To have a leader of the opposition not know that in the last government too there was a body like this that operated, and that Bruce Lovell headed the agency, is really bad. It's atrocious, it's horrible. He should be ashamed of it. He didn't know because he is a junior functionary. as I said before. It's a really, really sad thing for the country. So that is my takeaway from it. It is not the newspapers, because people write and then you correct things and stuff. But it is Norton's lack of knowledge and his rush to criticize everything that the PPP, or that he thinks PPP, because he's led by newspaper articles. A leader of the opposition has to be a bit more discerning. Maybe I spent 5 years at that, I can give Norton some technical assistance in this regard. You have to be a bit more discerning. So I'd make the offer to him. You can't be led by your nose to every corner. So this is something that is important. On the Marriott, I saw, again, a lot of the controversy about who the guy is, who made the highest bid, and Kaichou News editorial saying maybe we shouldn't sell to the highest and stuff. Well, let me say to you, we received the bids. The highest bid is $65 million. And as I said before, when we went out to tender, we were testing the market. We believe in the government that none of the bids meet our price expectations, and therefore we will not proceed with any of those bids. That the Marriott will remain in the public domain as part of the government until we can get an appropriate offer that mirrors the true value. And we know what we think we believe, or we know what the true value will be in the current context. So that matter should be put to rest, that we will not proceed with any of the bids because we believe that they are too low based on the value of that asset now and its capacity to earn. I'm gonna just go through a couple of other issues because I don't want to spend too much time today. So I see in the Kaichou News again a series of stuff. Let me tell you that the agreement, the environmental permit has been issued for the Waru project, and that project has been approved and will be signed shortly. So, as I said yesterday to the MRR Waves, once the signature of the documents take place, then both of these documents will be uploaded to the ministry's site, and you would be available to the public for commentary. I had a report from the EPA that the parent guarantee is practically negotiated, and now the Exxon has the part of, because as the operator, now has to get its shareholders' approval, and hopefully that will be done shortly, but the wording and everything else, the agreement has been settled. So we are expecting, I don't know how long it will take, but not exceeding a month for them to get the shareholders' approval, and then we'll have the parent guarantee in place. The field development plan for Lisa has been completed, and that is the plan that would allow for the extension for the gas stove for at least 20 years for that project, so that you'd have gas supply for at least 20 years. So that has been completed. On that same note, I saw Patterson has emerged out of the woodwork to complain that he said, I think I have it here, in an effort to make this project, the Wales project, somewhat viable, the government will be discarding $450 million investments over the past year. So Patterson, we know of Patterson's history in this project. They could have made a decision on the site since 2016 because they knew it was coming. He failed to do that. There were several APNU people who were buying up land in areas where they thought the pipeline would land. That did not happen because they lost the elections. They couldn't take the pipeline there. Thirdly, there were several sites that were selected. Here, 3 areas were assessed: Wales, East Coast, more the East Bank, so passing Ogle, and in the Crab Island area in Berbice, for the establishment of this, the power plant, the NGL facility, and to take the pipeline there. The one in Region 4 was a non-starter because of the value of the land and the density of the population here and the limited acreage of land. They look at the length of the pipeline. They did an assessment between Wales and Berbice, the Crab Island area. Wales was found as the most appropriate site. So we did all of that. Then, but clearly, for somebody to say this, and especially a former minister who was responsible for GPL, shows that he knows absolutely nothing. And that was the bad leadership that GPL got. So APNU did not make any major investments in the entire period it was in office. It brought a tiny plant, German plant, that Patterson himself went to see for Essequibo Coast. Then, after the no confidence motion, after the elections, we found that Jordan took money from the treasury, from the budget, although there was no budget, took money and made a down payment on a power plant. This was unheard of. It's unconstitutional. You can't use money if there is no budget. You can only use for recurrent expenditure, not capital expenditure. He did that. Contrary to law, they paid a down payment on the 46 megawatts power plant. That was the only major investment in the APNU period in power. They had one time accumulated over $25 billion when the price of oil fell from $120 a barrel to $28 a barrel. And they didn't adjust the price, so they accumulated nearly $25 billion, spent it up in GPL. So that's a little bit of history. Now, Jordan said $450 million of investment, US dollars of investment in the past 10 years. So I don't know where this $450 million of investment in power generation took place in the last 10 years. Somebody should ask him, in what facility? Because it was $50-something million for the 46 megawatts, and probably maybe less than 10 million for the one in Essequibo. So what other major investments we bought a few of the 25 megawatts, I think, for Vredenhoop, and then one for Kingston too. But nowhere near 450 million US of investments in 10 years in power generation in this country. In fact, it might be 1/4 of that, about 1/4 of that in capital. So this is, I don't know where he pulled this figure from. It would be interesting to ask him where he pulled that. Because he's saying now his contention is that once we start generating 300 megawatts here, we will then have to park these units that we bought, and we'd still have to pay back for the units. That was his contention, to make that viable. Now, Jordan needs to understand something called reserves. Right now, we don't have reserves. That is why you have blackout. Most utilities in the world, they have about 75% of their installed capacity is reserve. so that in case you have a problem with installed capacity, you can put on your reserves. Some even have spinning reserves. They keep it going all the time so that just in case the power comes down, you can do that, so you don't have any blackout whatsoever. But it costs you to have spinning reserves. But I mean reserves held. We don't have reserves now because of the lack of investment. So our peak demand is close to installed capacity. That's why every time you lose one unit, you get blackouts. Leaving out the transmission. I'm not talking about transmission yet. I'm just talking about generation. So he has to know that it's hogwash that he's talking about. So if we start the 300 megawatts now, we have a new power plant. A lot of these units can go into reserves because you will need reserves too. Because periodically you have to turn off the 300 megawatts to do maintenance, not all at one time. So you need to bring the reserves on when you turn off, say if you turn off one unit to do maintenance. It's not going to happen often, but for that purpose. So that's normal. This guy's, I can't believe that somebody who was in charge of GPL will make such a nonsensical statement. Total nonsense that you don't need, that, oh, we're going to waste all these 450 million that we bought units. First of all, for in the last 10 years. First of all, that's wrong. And secondly, you need reserves. You need reserves. And then the demand will grow. The way I anticipate it, because we were planning on a demand profile that would see nearly 500 megawatts. Remember, we have to bring on all the private demand that's self-generating. So on GPL now, we have maybe 150 megawatts being supplied, but you have maybe around over 100 megawatts being self-generated. Now, when those people, the price comes down by 50%, those people are going to stop generating and they're going to come on to the national grid because it's cheaper. So immediately, we're going to be utilizing most of this power. We were there, and then with the steep growth of industries, in a few years, we may need about 500 megawatts. That is why we're saying we want to bring on some solar and also the hydro to supplement this. So it's carefully thought out. And we don't need this to make the project viable. The sale of the NGL at current prices now will be enough to pay back for the whole project, whether the cost is $2.1 billion or $1.7 billion. It will pay back for the pipeline, it will pay back for the power plant and the NGL facility at the current prices for the liquids that we will get from drying the gas before it goes to the power plant. So why would a man say this? And Kaichor News gives him prominence without any questioning. They don't question these things. It makes no sense whatsoever. Then they have the economist who is not an economist. I see Norton drop him from his press conferences now, like he got demoted. But he said again in the Kaichor News that he's worried that we would risk losing millions of US dollars because of the delay in audit. And now, and he goes back to the PSA. Will somebody ask, he was a former employee, I just found out, of Sarah. I didn't know he was working with Clive Thomas, the useless agency. They charged several people, but they never recovered anything. Clive Thomas, he was in the company of Clive Thomas, Ogunse, I don't know, the other one, Hines, all of them who had cushy job there. It was an agency that you park the useless people in. So that's where they parked him. Lowe was there under the apno period. He is a SARA employee. I just found that out. So if somebody said to him, research, we dealt with this issue when it came up several years ago. That it is true that the PSA says that the audits have to be completed within 2 years. So we had gone past, even under the APNU period, the 2 years had passed, even before they started their audit. And we made it clear when we got into office, no matter how long the audits take, the ExxonMobil and the co-venturers, the companies, could never use as an excuse the timeline in there. Because if they use that and don't want to comply with the audit, they'd have a ton of brick falling on their head on other issues on the regulatory side. We made it clear, and Exxon came out with a statement saying the 2 years in the PSA didn't matter. It was clarified, it was dealt with already. How many times do we have to go through every time somebody, like an uninformed person like this Low, comes up with he gets headline. This is the only country you can get a headline for talking stupidity. You get a headline, a big headline too for stupidity. It's unbelievable. You know, headlines are rare things to get. But here you get it again. So that is, and then of course, the ubiquitous Vincent Adams. Again, he's gone back to the no feasibility for the whale site or the cost of the pipeline, etc. Not dealing even with that. On the other hand, I've seen Mr. Bulai, because I want to deal with that. I mentioned his name here a few times. And he said now, solar power for households remains viable option. My energy bill is now lower. And I believe Mr. Bulai. I believe it. Yeah. This is something I've pushed people to do. I'm even exploring it. So I push people to do solar panels for their households individually. That was not the conversation. That was never been the conversation. The conversation is having 300 megawatts of solar power instead of the gas-to-energy project. That you can find base load. The issue has been always base load for utility scale supply, not for households. We never fought against household solar panel. People should do that and put up their heater and everything, try to cut their bill. When a utility has to supply power, it's a different thing than when the household, which is intermittent. The moment, if the sun don't shine for a few days, you always connect it back to the utility, you get your power there. So it's a backup and you can save there. But the utility has to, if the utility doesn't have power, first of all, the storage, to store 300 megawatts of power, it's almost impossible now. And 24 hours power to be stored at that price that they're saying, 3 cents per kilowatt hour, it's impossible. Impossible. That's why I said we're talking about utility scale 24 hours base load power. So he's talking about household power, and that's fine with me. They two different things, totally different things. Now, Glenlal at the last thing, I said I'm resetting the whole thing. So we now, he was supposed in 2 weeks to bring, to put in his newspaper who will be supplying the power at 3 cents per kilowatt hour, 24 hours. And then I said once that is done, I put him on our negotiating team, the government's negotiating team. Instead, he went to Riverton and gave a garbled presentation, incoherent presentation. I got the transcript. I share it with the media. In a bottom house meeting, it's incoherent, totally incoherent. Has no sense, but misleading people again. he probably confused the hell out of them. So I notice the new thing is after corruption perception index has come under some scrutiny and local transparency, the TI. You would recall they lied in the report. I'm not going through that again. They sent up a false report. They've battened down the hatches. They're ignoring it as though it never happened. The report is published by Transparency International. They've not spoken about withdrawing that report or its accuracy. They've moved on. So they rolled out Gulsaran, who is another politician with notoriety, and he now has, he is trying to defend them. And then suddenly I saw a World Justice Project thing came out in Kaichor News again, another index they're going to run down our country. So I'm not going to comment on that because I just saw it. Let me just say to you that I've had an interesting look at some of this stuff. And it's quite revealing. And you know that in the survey, I think I have this survey here somewhere. I want to give you some numbers. By the way, in the survey that they did, we don't know who did the survey and stuff like that, but they said that the media in the Caribbean is 45% of it is corrupt or mostly corrupt. So that's a very interesting thing too, because I see a lot of people look at MPs. The MPs were 53%, just marginally above the media. Marginally above media as corrupt and or totally or almost corrupt. So that's something we should assess and see if you believe in. Maybe Raghubir should look into it as the Press Association, whether that's true. If the media is corrupt or mostly 45%. And I'm not saying it before they say I'm criticizing media. It's the same report that is in the Kaichor News that they spoke about. It's in a headline about the report found Guyana to be bad. Well, in the badness, they said this local media is 45. You looked at that part too. Look at all the indices. So I'm not going to deal much more with these reports because as many people have said, they're really, sometimes they're just intend to just make us look bad. That's all I'm going to say today. I'm opening up the floor now for questions. Yeah, sure. Can someone lend me a pen, please? Yeah, let me make a note. So the thing is that I'm not sure that I understand you fully because there will be excess gas. So first of all, the 50 million cubic per day that comes in free, we will get all the liquids from that. The government will get all the liquids from that. But the pipeline has a capacity to bring in probably another 80 million cubic per day, so about 130. So we already have a number of expressions of interest to utilize the additional gas. So all of the gas can be sold right now for fertilizer, basalt fiber, a whole range, making even feed, animal feed and all of that. So the demand for the additional gas is already there. So once you get past the power plant comes in, it's starting to run, the 50 million comes in, then we can start pushing to get the additional ones. Then that would be sold to the people for other industries. So they'll be producing maybe urea and other things right here in Guyana. So the demand is there. So we know for the whole project, the demand is secure on the gas side. The gas for power and then gas for other industries. All would be secure. That's one. So we're not exporting the gas because we'd be utilizing all the gas here. We're exporting we would have more of the liquids than we can utilize locally. Say the cooking gas. So it's estimated that from our 50 million cubic, we'll have 3 times the national consumption now of cooking gas. So we will export some of that. We're hoping into northern Brazil, but across the Caribbean. People have approached us already. We haven't decided who will be, where that will go. That will be done later. So we believe there will be demand for that, but there's demand for industries. A lot of the, you can use cooking gas and propane even for industry now, right here. So like some of the propane, I was told that you could put it in tanks. And because, so in the hinterland where we're generating now using fossil fuel, like we're carrying diesel and all of that, we may be able to tank our propane and take it to those locations and utilize that. So I remember I said at current prices. So what if the price of gas falls internationally, right? So forget the demand, that part I dealt with it because we're not exporting our gas. Later, we're working on a gas strategy to see if we can do that, build a new industry, a gas industry to export. So what if the prices fall? Yeah, prices can go up and come down. That is why I said at current prices, it can pay back. So the worst case scenario is that the prices fall. So then we have to rely on GPL and through the sale of the electricity to pay back. Because right now, the electricity would be practically free. So that is where at current the interest rates now, that are current interest rates, it will cost us, when we factor interest rates and everything in, it will cost us about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. That is how you factor it. So the source of repayment is separate from the cost per generation. The total capital costs and operating costs and the price of gas, which is 0, the 3 combined of all the facilities, the pipeline, the NGL facility, and the power plant, all 3 combined will cause you to generate about 4 cents per kilowatt hour, just over 4 cents. So the repayment is different. Yeah, I don't. Where is this headline? Which newspaper? Okay, True News. No, I must say I haven't seen the headline, so I don't know what you're talking about. But our share of the revenue is formula determined. It's formula determined, and so you can calculate it. Once you know the total, the only thing is that it's also dependent because we get a share of the oil, and then we sell the oil, and that's all formula determined in the PSA. Kaichoro News has a problem with the PSA, but it's not that you're surprised. So it's almost a circular thing. It makes no sense. But only in a circular mindset can you actually justify that. For me, it's circular, it's linear, some things are more complex, some things. So, like that issue for me, it's a commonsensical issue. If it's formula based, you don't agree with the formula. That is why we decide to change the formula, so in future developments, the proceeds will be higher. It's formula based, we're fixing it. And we decided not to renegotiate the Starbuck block, but we're fixing it as we promised in the other formula. So that is, we believe we should get a greater take, and we're fixing it.
Yeah,
Let's move. I don't know what is critic. Critic actually said that?
The critic said critic.
Oh, critic said that?
Critics, which person criticized?
We know of this. We know of this critic. We know one critic in this country. Which other critic? Tell me a name. Tell me another critic name. Yes. No, but like who? Who highlighted this thing? Yeah, man. But if you report, you gotta get source, man. You gotta say somebody said. It's not like the NSA, the secret agency. Somebody will say it is. This is not like clandestine thing. No, but who said this particular stuff? Yes, I know it's in the newspaper, man. Anyhow, I don't want to put you under pressure. I don't want to make it look like I'm harassing you, but you understand what I'm getting at. If you come to a press conference, you got to tell me this man said that, then I'll examine what he said. All right? So let's go on to the third one. That's my take. You heard my take already on the matter about formula-based. All right. Let's go on to the next question. Explain the other one to me. 3 you said you had. All right, no. First of all, I told you we made a decision on the contract. So the mining things about who monitoring and stuff, please deal with Vikram Bharrat there. One matter came to me about you not getting through with getting these mining contracts made public. I said we made a decision. The Minister of Finance was instructed to put all of these large-scale mining contracts up on their webpage. That's it. I don't want to go through now. That minister has a portfolio. I'm not dealing with bauxite and all of that now. Deal with that with the appropriate minister. I've dealt with that part. Yes, please.
There were 6 cases that you were looking into. Can you say exactly what were those issues as it relates to nomination day? And can you say if all of the issues from those 6 cases have been rectified? Also quickly, the Jacobs case in Berbice, was it one of those 6 cases or that was another one? The Jacobs family in Berbice that you called and you apologized to?
Oh, no, that's not one. This one here was understandable that what happened there, as I said before, that the husband is pro-PPP, he's campaigning with us, spoke with him up to today again. He's doing field work now. Unfortunately, his wife passed away. I was told that she had committed earlier because last year a lot of this was done, but she passed away a week before nomination day. Instead of seeing that she was replaced, the people who submitted the list, they claim it's an oversight. But they didn't go and resurrect a dead person like what APNU has done historically, resurrect, get people to vote, etc. It was an explanation. There's one case, of the others, I don't want to go through all of them, but for example, I saw someone from overseas saying this. We called in the candidate, he said he got somebody working with him to go out to take the signature. When we tracked the guy down, he said he thought he could do it, and he did it. So we made it clear to the people that they had to replace this immediately. We made it clear. So it's on the ground. So we tracked those down. So that's the kind of thing. But I was just saying, I don't want to call people's name here too, Because a lot of people, these are local government elections, they don't want their names at the national level be mentioned because they come under a lot of pressure in the community. I don't want to say, for example, of the 13 persons who signed that template, how many call me back to say it's nonsense? Because I'll put them under pressure in their own communities. I don't want to do that. And I say to them, they can't know how you vote when you go into the polling places. And this bullyism will work against APNU. Because people believe that they have an independent mind in this country to decide what's good for them. So we did a lot of that work, but I just want you to look at the magnitude of our submission. Over 27,000 names we submitted. It's not like we can't get more people in the areas. We have more PPP members in Linden than backers that we need, card-bearing members than backers we need for the list in Linden. We have more card-bearing members of the party. What APNU has done in like some of the areas I've seen, and in some of the other people who are contesting, they'll go to one family. They get 8, 9 backers from one family. We didn't do that, like go to the whole, the children, everybody signing up, all of that. 9 backers from a single family of 20-something backers they had to get. So effectively, in 4 families or 5 families, they got all their backers in some cases. And even, we found in Lodge somebody who is abroad. I asked the guys if the people would allow us to mention their name, who is abroad now, and APNU sign up their form. I have some of the names here, but I don't think I should mention of all the areas across the regions that APNU committed fraud in. But I think the people have to go to the police. Because I shouldn't be mentioning this here, but across all the regions. So we found somebody here. The guy has been living overseas. We know him because he's a friend of somebody here, and he is abroad.
Would you say all of the PPP's concerns with respective documents are resolved, and you expect all of those documents to be approved?
Yes, but the process is closed already. The process is closed, and now anybody, because GCOM, I think, has given the letter saying that the lists are all okay to everyone, and people can still go to the police. Norton wants to grandstand. He knows that this is not GCOM. Anybody that committed fraud can go to the police. He wants to grandstand in front of in front of GCOM for the reasons I've explained very early in the press conference. For those reasons, I don't want to repeat them.
Now that you have the COI report, what happens next? And specifically, one of the recommendations spoke about campaign financing laws. Is that campaign financing laws in the report? Is that something you'll look into?
Yes, it's something that we look into, and it's part of our manifesto. If you look at the PP manifesto. What happens to the report? This has to be studied by the executive. I think it will be tabled in Parliament. It will be tabled in Parliament. And then I guess if there are recommendations, those will be examined to strengthen the system. We have already started strengthening the system, so leave very little room for capricious action, and that has been acknowledged in the report. Through the changes in ROPA, the changes have been far-reaching and with a series of penalties and clarity as to what can happen in an election, how you go through the counting so that the farce that we've seen wouldn't repeat itself, the transparency surrounding the SOPs and them being made public before the count start, all of that has been addressed. So a lot of the things have been overtaken because of the changes in ROPA, and that has been acknowledged in the report. Now we need to look at the other laws because the one governing local government elections, the Municipal Act and all of these need to be revised too. to ensure that we don't have a similar situation repeating itself. So a lot of the changes have been made already that are being suggested. There's one thing that we've been talking about, for a long time, the report says, oh, there should be a change in the composition of the commission because it's politicized. And that Carter Center mentioned this in the past and the other donors. But one thing I think was ignored, and that I keep making to the donors, that the threat did not come from the commission. The threat came from the secretariat, the technical staff. And just imagine if we did not have a commission. Low and field, you saw at the end of the report how many times, and which the COI really was concerned about, that after the CCJ ruled that his unilateral attempt to disenfranchise 200,000 supporters of votes from the PPP using the flawed ruling of our court, the Court of Appeal here. Using that flawed ruling, and after that was overturned at the CCJ and they threw out his declaration, that he persisted in making new declarations 3 times to the commission that were false. He went back to the Lowenfield's report, the flawed one for Region 4, that was before the recount took place. And 3 times, 4 times he had to be directed by the commission to go back and fix that. So the political body really, the commission, had that not been in place, and he was there alone at the technical level as so many countries had, we would have had a different result. He would have declared. So that question has not been answered by many of the international community because they saw the threats came from the so-called technical people. The technical people now try to steal elections, of course, for APNU, as that was demonstrated in a report. So I want to hear how the international community will address that issue. How do we ensure that you deal with that? Yes, please. And yeah, we go. Or let me start with this young lady first. Yeah, you.
As it relates to SARS, can you please explain what training SARS has been trying for the academic?
What training?
Yeah.
Training she was. Oh, okay. Now, we routinely, all the parties, I think, I saw people from India going from both sides, the PNC and PPP going on India, young people, and it was similar. We have offers for young people to go on these like tours of these countries and to learn a bit about policy making and what's happening in these countries. So political parties routinely get those offers from the international community, the big countries, on study tours like. And so that was what she was on.
Training while being a police.
How was she allowed to do training?
Yeah, while being
I don't understand that.
how
So May Tom, she is a member of the People's Progressive Party. So if she goes on, she gets released from our government responsibility, basically. She went on a party activity. You don't stop being like that. When the MPs from the APNU went recently to India, along with some of our young people, to India, they didn't stop being MPs, but they get released. It's a simple matter. People have multiple existence. You know, they have party responsibilities, they have government responsibilities, Mayor Thomas has been a member of our party. Yes, please.
Last year, April, you would have referenced that the government is on the verge of appointing the Petroleum Commission.
I don't know, it's me or I just, you were speaking a little bit. Just, yeah, project it a bit more.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Last year, you would have hinted that the government is on the verge of appointing the Petroleum Commission. Could you possibly give an update on that?
No, on the verge of. I said that we will be exploring several areas to enhance the framework. Right now, we're moving forward with 2 elements of that framework. We've done several already. The 2 that we are working on the PSA and the legislation, the Petroleum Act, that right now the ministry operates as the technical body. But in the future, we will examine a commission. So that's still on the cards, but it is not like on the verge of. I wouldn't have said that.
Dr. Vincent Adams will dispatch a letter raising concerns about slashing periods, company tariffs.
Who is Dr. Fitz Adams?
Dr. Vincent Adams.
Oh, Vincent Adams. Yeah.
He would have dispatched a letter to the media, so I wanted to know if you were willing to comment on that.
No, I didn't see his letter, and I don't read his letters. I think he's a politician who is bitter that he didn't do a lot of the things when he was there. This was the person whose signature was affixed to 2 of the most atrocious permits, or at least one of the 2 atrocious permits that were given, environmental permits on the Avenue. Nothing that he says now about anything on the EPA will convince me that he was a disaster when he was there. And he's a politician. He's been on, I don't treat him as a technical person. He's mounted the platform of the AFC on several occasions. So I wish you would hang on to every word that PPP politicians also say, just like Vincent Adams' word. He is a politician. So I don't pay no attention. So I didn't read his letter. I just scan the headlines sometimes. Okay. Anything else? Yes. You want it? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to share with you your homework for North.